Well, hello and welcome to AETA Talks, the official podcast of the American Embryo Transfer Association. I'm your host, Dr. John Gibbons. I'm an associate professor of reproductive physiology at the Texas Tech University School of Veterinary Medicine. I also serve on the board of directors for AETA. I chair the education committee, and I am a member of the promotions committee.
Hello, guys. I'm one of your co-hosts, Dr. Ramon Tosta, and I run New Life Veterinary Services. I'm also a certified veterinarian with the AETA and promotions committee co-chair, and it's great to be here today.
I'm your final co-host of the AETA Talks podcast, the official podcast of the AETA, Dr. Kelsey Savell, and AETA Promotion Committee co-chair.
Well, we have a great show ahead of us today, and I'm thrilled to have a very special guest joining us, Dr. Engelland. And he's the recipient of the 2025 AETA Edwin Robertson Lifetime Achievement Award. When merited, this award, the highest honor given by AETA, is presented to someone who has given his great service to the embryo transfer industry. Glenn, thank you so much, and I look up to you every day, and I've seen the things you've done, and I'm very honored to have you here with us today.
Well, thank you, Ramon and John and Kelsey. I'm very humbled to have received this award, and I'm happy to give you a little of my perspective of the embryo transfer industry from the 40 plus years that I've been in this. So look forward to visiting with you about that.
In this episode, we're chatting with Glenn about AETA's history and how embryo transfer technology has evolved over time since he started his career until today.
As always, if you enjoy the AETA Talks or have any feedback for us, please let us know at our website, which is aeta@assochq.org.
And make sure to like, subscribe, and rate us on whatever platform you're listening on and spread the word to a friend or a colleague.
We'd like to give a special thanks today's episode to sponsor, and it's going to be the Promotions Committee. Your support enables AETA to continue sharing valuable insights and conversations that advance our industry. Thank you so much for the Promotions Committee and everything that has happened.
Yes, as a co-chair of that committee, I am honored to have been part of deciding to sponsor this podcast. This podcast means a lot to us, Dr. Engelland. We're so honored that you're here with us today. So thank you again for your time. So to get us started off, what was the state of the embryo transfer industry when you joined the AETA, which was 1989, I believe? You can correct me if I'm wrong. And how has it transformed over the last several decades?
A little bit of history before that. I graduated from Kansas State University School of Veterinary Medicine in 1983. I took a job in Hays, Kansas with Dr. Paul McCray, who was a founding board member of the AETA. And a little bit of history for any of those who don't know, the AETA pretty much was formed out of a necessity to fight a lawsuit that claimed a patent on embryo transfer procedures in general. So as the procedures were, someone got a patent and it just kind of sat there, no one worried about it, but someone acquired that patent and they decided they were going to enforce it. So they started contacting practitioners. And at that time, there were embryo transfer companies, and they started contacting these people saying that they were going to collect a royalty on every procedure they did. And so a lot of the practitioners got together and decided we have to fight this. So that was pretty much the beginnings of the AETA. That was before my time, but I know that's where it came from. I got my introduction to AETA because Dr. McCray took me to, I believe, an IETS meeting in San Antonio, and that would have been probably 1984. I'm not sure the year, but we were around 1984 or 1985. and I was introduced to the AETA. I then started my own embryo transfer practice in veterinary. I did a lot of cattle dairy herd work in those days. When I moved to central Kansas, there were 23 small dairies in our area that I was doing herd work for, and over the next few years, they disappeared. And so we went back to doing pretty much embryo transfer. And so by about 1987 or 88, I was doing pretty much full-time embryo transfer. We became involved in at that time, a lot of dairy work, and we were beginning to export embryos, and the association with USDA began at about that time when they decided they needed some help in the understanding what went on with embryo transfer and what they needed to do to write health certificates for these embryos to travel internationally. So it became a requirement that you be AETA certified, which was a new program there probably from the mid 80s on. And so there were a lot of us became needing to be certified. Then by about 1989, 1990, I believe I became certified in 91. Just a little bit of history on the export of those embryos. In the early days, we did not trust frozen embryos. No one trusted them. And so we were actually exporting fresh embryos. And so there were nights when here in central Kansas, we would flush a cow with those embryos were destined to go to France at the time. We would flush the cow about midnight, get those embryos. We would get them packaged up. They would be in a holding media, packed in ice water. My client would then drive to Kansas City, which was 2.5 hours to the airport, catch a flight from Kansas City to New York, and they get into, I believe, LaGuardia, or whichever airport it was. And at that time, they were flying the Concorde, the supersonic jet from New York to Paris. And Dr. Peter Elston, at the time, I believe, was waiting in New York, and they would gather these embryos from all over the country that were flown into New York, gather them, and he would take them packed in ice water to France, and then they would be disseminated out there, and those embryos would, by the next night, within about 24 hours, they had left the farm here in central Kansas, and they were being transferred fresh in France. We got along quite well, but it was a logistical nightmare, and it all came to an end when I believe they closed the airport in New York with Dr. Elston sitting on the airplane with a whole pallet of fresh embryos in his lap, and they closed the airport. And we decided then that maybe we ought to start trusting frozen embryos a little more. And so that was kind of just a story on that was rather interesting in the early days. And the USDA really didn't know how to handle them, so we would just fill out there was no embryo export certificates, so we would just fill out a live animal certificate and state on what the matings were on those, and they would just kind of blindly say okay and sign those certificates and send them on. And it was that evolution when they decided they needed our help as an association to come up with guidelines and procedures to export those embryos.
Yeah, we think we have it bad now with our FedEx and UPS woes with logistics. That sounds a bit more complex than a simple shipment.
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Engelland, you've served on a variety of committees, and you've held every major board office through the years. Could you give us kind of some insight on your experience with those committees and your experience with the board and how things had changed during your time there?
I spent two stints on the board of directors. The first series, the first 4 years, I was not a officer, and so I was just a board member for 4 years, and that ended just before the problems we had with the GMO management situation, so I didn't participate in that, and then was elected again and became an officer the second time, and went through treasurer, vice president, and president, past president on the board of directors. It's a very interesting, when you become involved in that, it's always very interesting to see the inside workings of an organization. And this one, of many of the organizations, church boards and school boards and water district boards and those, this one is very interesting because it's national and international in scope, and you get to deal with a lot of things that you wouldn't on local boards, and enjoyed that time very much.
Well, that's impressive. And you also devoted like 17 years to the certification committee, including 6 chairs. That's a lot of motivation there, and then a sustained commitment. I remember also with your good friend, Dr. Steve Moline, like, me, myself going through all my certification process, that you were there. At the time, the only reason why I couldn't go there was because Dr. Moline was able to, help me with giving me the exam. But you've gone through a lot of people being certified under you, and can you just tell us where all that motivation comes from?
Well, the certification program, is kind of the premier program of the AETA. It's the thing we kind of hang our hat on, and so I think it needs to be very professionally run. It needs to evolve with the industry over time, and it's rather interesting to try and mesh the knowledge we have and the trying to educate young people, get them into a network where they can, hopefully, if they have a question, they have someone that they can call and figure things out, to try and, because our whole nature is to try and promote a public confidence in the ET industry. And if we promote our certified practitioners, that if a person wants to do some embryo transfer, if they hire a certified practitioner to do that, they can depend on at least a minimum level of a minimum level that they could expect out of a practitioner. To do that, obviously our industry evolves over time, so we need to evolve over time. I know there was a push several years ago to make the AETA a DVM only organization. Eventually that got to a vote of the members, and it was voted down rather substantially. I don't know, but I'm going to guess it was like 80-20 that went down. I think that's very important to understand that we're an industry organization. So where we lie is that we're trying to promote a public confidence in what we're doing. So that was a lot of my impetus for being involved in the certification program, is to help us promote that premier program. And I very much enjoyed my time on that, and trying to keep up to date with what was going on and educate young people coming into our system, and trying to promote a sense of networking within that certification program.
That's great.
Yep. I remember, Dr. Engelland, you completed my practitioner evaluation when I was becoming certified, and that was my first interaction with you. So I was lucky to have you as my inspector during that portion of the process. So
to comment on that, Kelsey, that's the one thing that I've enjoyed most of the certification committee over the years, is doing those initial inspections. When we started doing quote inspections. That was part of USDA wanting us to have an ongoing evaluation of our certified practitioners. And so we were, one of the things we came up was to do inspections. And we were doing random inspections of certified people. And so we would just randomly choose a percentage of practitioners each year. And then, one of the committee members, and usually those randoms became, they became more of a, coffee session than anything, because it would be very hard for me to go inspect, somebody who's been doing
Brad
this.
Stroud or somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Looney. And the story with Dr. Looney, who we all know has probably done more for this organization than about anybody. He was doing some work in Oklahoma years ago, and Oklahoma decided they were going to license non-DVMs to do embryo transfer in Oklahoma. So somehow I became involved in setting up a testing program to certify or license non-DVMs in Oklahoma. Well, Dr. Looney, being a non-DVM, a PhD, in our first testing down there, Dr. Looney was in that class. So it was very, it was a very uneasy thing for me to set up a test to test Dr. Looney's ability to do embryo transfer. And that was, we laugh about that to this day, but I think he probably knew 100 times more about what we were trying to find out than what I knew. So anyway, that was just one of the things that happened over time that was rather interesting.
Yep. And to that point, it would be kind of hard to get young members to get involved in that committee, if it were still that way, and, here's somebody certified for 2 years going to inspect random inspection of somebody that's been doing this for 30 years. It wouldn't sit right.
And
so
that's
the random
part of the
inspections.
evolution.
Yeah. So
That's
those
part of the
random
evolution of our program, that we finally decided these random inspections, they're costing us a lot of money, and they're not really doing anything. So we weren't reaching but a small percentage of the people each year anyway. So that's when we went to our recertification session, where 1 out of your 5 years that you're now required to attend, that session at the AETA meeting. We reach everyone that's certified at least once every 5 years that way. We can find out, it's a lot easier if a practitioner that's been doing something wrong for a lot of years, it's a lot easier for us to address those situations in a peer pressure type situation than it is just an inspection one-on-one. So that's been a very good thing. But the one thing that I've enjoyed the most, and I think is probably one of our best programs, is that initial certification inspection, where we go out to a newly certified person's practice and just watch them do a procedure, help them understand some of the things that they don't understand, give some pointers where they can, but then to give them, they have a relationship with you as a mentor. And if you have any questions, feel free to call me, and ask that question. If somebody on this committee will be able to help you answer those questions. And so that's been one of the most satisfying things that we've got going over the years.
So did you help Dr. Looney flush a cow in Oklahoma?
Yeah, I showed him how to do that. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think at the time Dr. Looney was actually that was IVF was in its infancy, and I believe Dr. Looney was actually setting up a state-of-the-art IVF lab in Oklahoma, and part of why he needed to be licensed there. It's yeah, you have to let him tell the other side of that story.
That's funny.
Well, I think having that inspection upon certification, it served exactly that role that you've described. So, it gives, at the time I had never met you before, but it gave us some time for some one-on-one discussion and interaction and a mentorship role there. And it's super valuable. It was super valuable for me as a newer member and newly certified. So it definitely reached its goal, served its purpose there for me as a new member.
Dr. England, what was your moment that you were most proud of at the certification committee?
On the years that I was a member of the certification committee, our initial test was one that was handwritten. It was becoming very antiquated, and so when I became chairman, one of the main goals I had was to make that test digital, put it on a platform where we could change the questions, we could continue to update it, and our committee, we kind of devised our committee, and Dr. Gibbons was one of the educators that we specifically got on our committee with a clandestine purpose of having those people who are comfortable writing tests help us do that. And Dr. Gibbons, as well as let's see, John Yu and who all were on.
Dr. Dolman mostly.
Dr. Dolman, and I believe Brad Lindsay was instrumental in that too. But one of the things I was most proud of, and I would like to thank those people for, was to getting that test accomplished in my years as chairman.
Dr. England, what does receiving the Edwin Robertson Lifetime Achievement Award mean to you personally?
It's quite a humbling experience, first of all. But I think what it means, it's a bit of a validation for myself that the effort you put in over the years is, it's appreciated, I guess. It's just a validation of the appreciation that other people have for what you attempted to do. And it is quite a humbling experience.
Yeah, I was at the ATA when you received your award there, and then I don't think they could have chose anybody better than Dr. Moline to give that to you, and it was quite, to me, I don't know, I've known Dr. Moline for a long time, and then I've never seen him speak so highly of someone like yourself. So,
and I think that would be reciprocal with Dr. Moline. I think he was the head of the certification committee for about 10 years. And you could have no better leader of a committee with the knowledge he has, working so closely and with a level head. There was always a very simple solution to a lot of the problems, and a lot of the things he just took care of as chairman of the committee. And I didn't realize how much, until I became chairman, I didn't realize how many of those things that just happened that Steve did, and so that's, he was a very, very good mentor and colleague over the years, and still a very close friend. So I appreciate his involvement over the years, and even though we're close to the same age. I considered him a mentor and a very close friend.
That's awesome.
Is there anyone, mentor, colleague, or group you'd especially like to recognize as part of this honor that you've received?
Yeah, I would like to recognize Dr. Steve Moline, who was the chairman of the committee. He asked me to be on the committee 18, 19 years ago. He was the chairman for lots of years there, who, I very much appreciated his mentorship as being a colleague. Dr. Brad Lindsay, who's been on the committee probably as long as I have. Dr. Greg Garcia, who was a member of our committee, and he's no longer on it, but I appreciated his help over the years. And Dr. Clay Briner, who is taking over the chairmanship now and is doing and will continue to do a wonderful job, as well as all the committee members that have put in their time over the years. I think as our certification program continues on, it needs to evolve over time and stay up to date with the industry standards and stay on top of it so that we continue to remain relevant. So I'd like to thank all those people that have been involved over the years.
Wonderful.
And Dr. Charles Looney, who has taken a lot of my calls over the years just to visit about things, and I appreciate his help with and he's being involved with many years. He was on a committee, a committee member for the annual meeting each year for the program committee. He was on that and has done a wonderful job over the years. So I appreciate his service to the organization. And many that I, can't remember, but I think it's one of the most wonderful organizations that I've ever been involved with, and that's going to continue to be that way.
What advice would you have for mentoring members that are considering certification, and maybe even for veterinary students that are interested in the embryo transfer industry?
Unlike in the early days, when I was in veterinary school, everything was a big secret. To try and get any information out of anyone involved in the industry was a big secret. And I think anymore, there's the vast majority of us are more than willing to, bring you in, show you as a young person what we do, see if it interests you. We have a lot of young people come through our practice, maybe just to spend a day and see what it is we do. Some become very interested. Some go on to be involved in the industry. Some don't. But don't be afraid to call any one of us. And I know everyone on the certification committee has that same attitude. Give us a call. Come spend a day with us and just see what it's all about. And young practitioners that are becoming involved in the industry, want to do some embryo transfer, become involved in the association, I would tell you to get involved. If you have an interest in a committee, contact the chairman of that committee, and we're usually more than happy to have you come on board if you have something to offer.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again, Glenn, so much for taking the time to chat with us today. That was so educational, and it's just wonderful to hear some perspective and some of your story. So we appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks again, Glenn, and for taking the time and chatting with us today. I learned a lot, and it was great.
Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of the AETA Talks. If you enjoy our show, be sure to like, subscribe, and rate us. And please spread the word to friends and colleagues. We welcome your feedback at our website, which is aeta@assochq.org. And if you'd like show notes or previous episodes or just more information about the AETA in general, please find us at aeta.org.
And thanks again to the AETA Promotion Committee for sponsoring today's podcast and helping advance the future of the embryo transfer industry.
Thank you, Promotions Committee. That was great.